Greetings, fellow Planeswalkers.
I'm James.
And I'm Paul.
And you're listening to the newest episode of the Commander at Arms podcast. This week on the podcast, we are talking about our personal ideals for navigating politics in Commander. This is a very hot-blooded issue that happens throughout games. We're going to kind of just step back and analyze as much as possible and give you the best information that we can based on our personal experiences and our good and bad experiences. But before that, we have our upkeep trigger to do here. We want to thank all of our patrons. Personally, you guys are great. You guys help keep the lights on here in the studio, keep us fed, and possibly may or may not be able to, afford a couple new cards here and there because of that. A lot of the donations do go back to the Discord server that we have. So I want to shout out our Discord server, fantastic community. A lot of what we talk about on the show actually comes from that server. So if you want to be a part of that discussion, jump in the Discord server. All these are in the show notes below. After that, we have Mail Day and Interesting Finds. Paul, it's been a while since we've done one of these. Have you bought or found anything spicy or delicious?
It has been a while, and it is good to be back. I haven't ordered any products or any cards or anything, although that might be changing soon because I didn't actually buy or even hold any Crimson Moon or was it Crimson Vow and what was the first set?
Midnight Hunt.
Midnight Hunt.
I like Crimson Moon better, not gonna lie.
I didn't actually order or buy any product from that, so I have zero cards in my collection from there. But there are quite a few cards that I'm really looking to get. In terms of playability, I really want that green mythic from Crimson Vow that has hexproof and it's
Azana?
Maybe. I can't remember.
Yeah, she has hexproof, and then when she flips, she gives everything hexproof and a +1/+1 counter.
Yes.
I need that for
I want that one, and I want the rare, the 4-mana 4/4 trample haste that flips into an anthem that also gives trample and haste to all your creatures.
Yes.
That card's sick too.
I also need that card. So I guess it is, Paul. Just pick up 2 copies and then Happy Christmas, James, maybe? Question mark?
Maybe. I do owe you a wedding gift, not gonna lie.
Oh, I mean, yeah, should be right.
We'll figure that out later. But as far as interesting finds, I did actually. I got tired of having none of my decks updated because I'm too lazy to do it, and even beyond that, when I'm by myself, it's really hard for me to sit down and do that. So a friend of mine suggested, "Hey, why don't we just all do it together?" So I took a bunch of my cards that were in my immediate vicinity, and I did find some real goodies hiding in there. Some real goodies.
Looks like you had a really great Magic experience after being away for so long.
I never left the game. I just left the space.
And I mean, that's fair. I mean, we kind of do everything in moderation, and I feel like Magic is one of those things. Even us being Magic the Gathering content creators, I still feel like I have a bit of a fallout every once in a while where it's I won't play Magic for 2 weeks, 3 weeks or so, but I'm still it's different. I'm not in the space as much as I'm on Twitter interacting with people. I'm playing games, or it's vice versa. I'm more on Twitter interacting with, other content creators and everyone else in the kind of Magic community, but I'm not playing games. And I mean, that's kind of my ebb and flow of being a content creator. I'm still trying to be in the forefront of finding information and being able to project it here for everyone who listens and watches these episodes. As well as being able to take it and just know when I can take a break and be all right, cool. I've had a week off. I really feel like jamming some games, and then I'll jam 19 games straight in 4 days and go, okay, now it's time to take another break.
What about you, James? Any mail?
Yes, actually. I may or may not have picked up another piece for a very coveted deck that I talk about a lot here on the podcast. It is a white card, so you can kind of guess what decks it's going in. I bought Esper Sentinel, and it is extremely expensive compared to what I ever thought it was going to be. It is just a fantastic 1-drop. It's a 1-mana 1/1 that draws you a card. I mean, yes, please. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you how good Esper Sentinel is because everyone listening to this already knows how good Esper Sentinel is. I also... What else have I bought recently? Oh, I mean, I've been trying to fill out Old Gnawbone. I've been playing that a lot recently. Just filling out some stuff here and there. I think I talked about getting my tireless provisioners. If not, I may have not mentioned it already, but I was in the hunt for some tireless provisioners, and there was a really cool interaction that I had with some guys on Facebook, and they're another set of content creators. They're called Kicking Myself. I think they're on Anchor, but I will find them and I will shout them out somewhere in our show notes or Twitter or something. But they were able to ship me a foil copy of Tireless Provisioner, because they were like, yeah, we have it, it's fine, here you go. And then some other people kind of shipped me as well. So I've just been filling up my decks, all my green decks with Tireless Provisioner. Because again, that's a 3-mana landfall ETB make a treasure. It's so good value. So Old Gnawbone got one, Tulane got one, and Yarrick got one, because, I mean, drop a land, make 2 of them just seems even better.
Fair enough. Yeah, Tireless Provisioner is basically a slightly more expensive Lotus Cobra that lets you save the mana for a different turn, and Lotus Cobra is a pretty heavily played card, so it's kind of shocking to me that Tireless Provisioner hasn't quite taken off as much.
I mean, the foil
version... It is a pretty
version,
recent card, so that might be why.
Yeah, the foil version that I got was like under $2, so they were just like, yeah, he'd just have it, and he have another couple copies of the regular non-foil. I was like, yeah, cool, I'll take that, no worries, cool. So yeah, a bunch of cool guys. I listened to some of their episodes, and they got some really cool content, so go check them out. They're called Kicking Myself. Excellent. That kind of pushes us into our so we kind of go into the next section where we talk about our YouTube channel, which we haven't posted a video in there for a little bit. We haven't posted a deck tech for quite a while, and yep, that's on us. We kind of just took a bit of hiatus, kind of like a creative hiatus from that at the time being. Couldn't really find anything that was interesting enough that I really wanted to brew around. And Paul's just been like super busy with work and everything, so because of that, no new deck techs as of recently. I think the last one we did was the Max and Lucas deck tech, which didn't get shown as much love as I thought it was going to. But if you want to check it out, please go check it out. It is on youtube.com/commanderatarms. Other than that, we have all of our other deck techs on there. I still have an Is It deck tech that's got to go up at some point. It is around I think it's a Midnight Hunt commander. Or it's a Crimson Vow commander. I know it's Is It, and it's all about drawing cards and playing cards that you have drawn. So, a lot of fun. And I've kind of put my own little tasty spin on it. So, yeah, go check us out, like our videos, subscribe, do all the things you would do on YouTube. But instead of shouting out a video, which I guess I just did, I'm going to tell you guys to go over and check out is it Gogly Mowgli's Twitch page. So over there is a VOD of yours truly playing Old Gnawbone, which kind of circles back to why I was picking up all those cards for Old Gnawbone, because I just needed to, fill out the deck a little bit. But I'll have that in the show notes below or in the video description. Go and check out her Twitch page and follow her and tell her that I sent you, because it was a lot of fun to play. I think we played for like 4 or 5 hours, and my play of the week was very much akin to that VOD. So let's just say Old Gnawbone doing Old Gnawbone shenanigans and finding a weird loop to be able to like gain 1 billion life.
If that's not enough incentive to go watch that, look, I don't know what is, right?
Yeah, I don't know what is it either. I mean, like, it was a lot of fun. There was myself, Beth, who runs a stream, Googly Moogly. There was also Danny from Dad Jokes and Cardboard, who are another cool set of guys over there that do some pretty sweet content. Yeah, we've just been kind of jamming games offline as much as possible with some brand new content creators. Going to try and get a lot more collabs going here on the podcast. Be able to like showcase some of the smaller to mid-range, maybe some higher tier guests on the show all next year. 2022, we're going to hit the ground running. Got a couple of some exciting stuff happening in the background, so that's another quick channel update, I guess, because that's what we do here on the show at the start here. We kind of let you know what's happening with us. But for all intents and purposes, we're all here to talk about politics, Paul. So I guess this is kind of a segue into our main phase 1, where we're going to start playing our lands, getting treasures for them, and then just storming off. Because that's what you do with Lotus Cobra and Tireless Provisional.
So the way we've broken this down is instead of questions. We more or less have like a list of bullet points. And of course, we have the show broken up into 2 separate segments as usual. And what me and James decided was best is we have the more like rudimentary or like blunt statements first, the ones that are just very clear cut to the point, and then we have some more theoretical questions or statements in main phase 2. So you may want to stick around for those. We did our best to come up with some interesting ones to answer. But of course, the most important part of all politics in Commander is before you even start the dang game. And that is, of course, something that me and James talk about all the time, and it cannot be stressed enough. Rule 0. We've never really talked about how we address Rule 0, though, and I'm going to let James kind of take the lead on that one because he's actually a lot better at it than I am.
I start the conversations off very bluntly. I'm like, all right, cool. What is the intention that we are trying to get out of this game? Like, what's our experience? What do we want? Do we want fast-paced, big stacks? Whereas, like, the stack just gets this huge resolution. You know, we put like 10, 15 cards on the stack. We kind of figure it out. We finish the game within 6 to 7 turns. Cool, we can shuffle up, play another one. Do we want the board game style of Commander where we're all trying to assess the threats separately or come together as a group to figure out which are the best targets to take down at the time, and then kind of still letting everyone go off and do their own thing? Those games kind of like to end around, turn 10, turn 11. Or do we want even slower than that? Do we want like, those like campaign style games where they go on for 15, 16, 20 turns and can take 3 hours or 4 hours to play, where everyone's done what their deck wants to do. No one's doing anything generically powerful. But I find it the easiest way of actually going around our Rule 0 talks. And I've been kind of testing this theory in the Discord server whenever I get a chance to play a game. Even though I've played with the people in the server a lot, I still like to say, all right, what kind of game are we looking to play? Are we looking to play X, Y, or Z? Because then I have decks all over the spectrum, and I give a slight rundown of what my deck likes to do, what it like when it likes to pop off, what turn it usually likes to win, and what does my ramp situation look like in that deck? Am I running strictly sorcery speed land tutors? Am I running highly efficient mana artifacts that are going to progress me in the game further, like Mana Crypt or Soul Ring? I mean, obviously we're all playing Soul Ring, but a Mana Crypt, Mana Vault, anything that kind of costs less than what it produces? Or am I playing kind of fairish, where I'm just trying to use my rocks to filter my colors out by using some of the Dimir signets, Golgari signets, and Simic signets to try and smooth out my maybe jankier mana base, which again may slow down my game plan. Another question would be that I like to ask is, who's your commander? Because that usually, again, kind of tends yourself to having maybe a more powerful strategy on the commander. I have a Yarrick deck, so it's Yarrick the Desecrated. It's Sultai Grind, basically. It is a commander that can be played very, very efficiently, very, very fast-paced, and almost akin to a CEDH deck. Maybe not as good as a CEDH deck, but definitely very optimized and very tuned. Mine is not very optimized or very tuned. It is just ETB tribal, and that's all I like to do. But because of the fact that I have a lot of small creatures, low CMC, very low curve, and the ETBs that I do are usually drawing cards, it can still seem quite powerful. So I kind of like to tell people, hey, this is what the deck wants to do, so they're not surprised. And another thing that needs to come up more often in Rule 0 talks, personally, I think, is land destruction, because I've had a lot of games where land destruction has been relevant in someone's deck and they have not told me that it's relevant in their deck. So because of that, I'm fine with land destruction, but when I'm told there's land destruction, if I am surprised by land destruction, that feels a little bit more bad. I can't think of a better word than it's just a massive feels bad, because no one likes to have their lands messed with. I mean, understandable if there's like a Gaia's Cradle, sure, blow up the Gaia's Cradle, that's understandable. But don't like, oh, you're the only blue player in the game, I'm going to cast Tsunami and destroy all islands. Don't do that. That's bad.
before I met James, I never actually had to do Rule Zero, so I didn't really know what it was. And the first time where I really considered I actually like had to talk about my decks, because I was just so used to playing with people that had similarly powered decks, was after a game when James was like, yeah, I just feel like your deck was like way better than everybody else's. And I was like, huh, I never really thought about that. So that was roughly the time when I started to really consider this. And basically everything that James said is pretty much what I do as well. In my opinion, the more details, the better. The more clearly you communicate what you want to do and what your deck does, the better. I know some people are like, oh, but that takes all the fun and the surprise out of it. And it's like, well, if your surprise is literally stopping people from playing the game or playing it as effectively as they normally would, then like it's not really fun now, is it? So me and James, we tell everybody exactly what combos we have. We tell everybody, like James said, if we have land destruction. I know when I play Elish Norn, I'm like, hey, look, I don't play Cormus Bell and Urborg, but I do have Armageddon, and I think that's actually all I play in there, is just Armageddon. Just because it's very important, because when people see certain commanders, they are, brains are hardwired to expect certain cards, and it is up to you as a player to tell them, hey, I am playing X or Y or Z, or I hate you, James. or or I'm not playing X, Y, or Z. And that actually kind of transitions pretty well into our next little bullet point here, which is honesty. And this is one that really, it transcends outside of the game of Magic even. Being honest as a person is a good thing. But even in a game of Magic, I've seen some people in my life, in the almost decade that I've been playing Magic, we're getting close to a decade. I've had conversations myself, experienced myself, as well as seen other people talk about being lied to in a game of Magic. If somebody's like, oh, like I don't have a counterspell in my hand, I promise. Whatever you do right now is going to resolve, and you go to cast that spell, right? And they're like, pact negation. Now, I personally don't mind. It doesn't really affect me one or the other. In some cases it's funny, but to some people, their whole experience in that game might have depended on that very moment right there, and you might have just soured the whole experience for them. And I get, of course, you wouldn't really expect somebody to just say oh yeah, I don't have a counterspell. Maybe you might. Some people might say oh, you should have known they were lying, but that's not the point. It feels bad when somebody says something and you are basing your entire turn, maybe even next few turns, off of what they said. Oh yeah, I have a way to deal with that in my hand. Don't worry about it. You don't have to do anything about it. And then they don't. Yeah. That feels bad. That makes people feel slighted.
I've had that happen where they're like, oh, don't worry about this piece, I can get rid of it. But then they do it when they feel like it, because they're like, oh, well, it's not really oppressing me, but I have the removal spell in my hand, but I'm not going to let you play Magic until I'm being affected. And that's the biggest, feels bad moment for me personally. Cause I mean, and that's the thing is when I say I can get rid of that, but I have to have X conditions met first. I need, or I can deal with the board, but there's currently stuff on my board that I need. Let me get into something else that I've just spent my turn into, and then I'll wipe the board. Obviously, I've had that happen a couple of times. But yeah, I mean, just be as open and as honest with what your plans are and intentions are, and just be if you have a counterspell in hand, don't say I don't have a counterspell and then counter something. Don't be like, oh, I just drew into it. Ha ha ha, that's funny. Like Paul said, between friends, that can sometimes get, you can find that can be humorous, there's fun in that, where you're like, haha, look at me, I poker faced you, I had a counterspell all along, ha ha ha, yay. But with random people at your LGS just getting a pickup game, just try and be as transparent as possible. I mean, I am almost at the point now where I have all of my decks online, mostly up to date as well. But if someone's still like, oh, what do you run? I'll just flick my deck over and just be like, here you go. Just go through it. Have a look. If there's a card that you don't like, just let me know. And I will I'll either not play it on myself. I'll be like, oh, okay, it'll just sit in my hand, or I'll just kind of, play around it and whatever. And going back to the infinite combos and stuff is, I will sit there and tell everybody this is my combo. These are my combo pieces. This is how it works. Have I gotten it off? No. I actually found one in Taser that I didn't know I had.
Was that the one that I demonstrated on board?
Yes, you did. I didn't even know that was a thing. I was like, oh yeah, this works. And you're like, James, that's infinite. I went, oh no. That's another one I have to add to the board now. Okay, cool. Pilfer's Plunderer is a fantastic card.
Yeah, for anybody that's interested, I can't remember exactly. It was like Viscera Seer, Pitiless Plunderer, and Tesa, and what was that other one?
Twilight Drover.
There you go, Twilight Drover. Yeah, that was it.
Because it's 3 mana to take a +1/+1 counter off it to make 2 more spirits. You sack those spirits, get 4 treasures. You keep doing that with a payoff say Blood Artist, off the top of my head. You just win the game.
Yeah, it also it's infinite mana because you net a treasure each time.
Yeah. Anyway,
pretty cool combo for anybody.
Not part of the whole conversation. Yeah, really cool combo if you're playing a Taster deck or anything that can kind of use it. But yeah, just be as open and as honest as possible, and that's the best advice that we can give on that one. The next part of politics, Paul, would be making deals with
something I suck
your
at.
Players. You really do. Look, I'm not going to lie. There have been times where you said hey, I will do this if you do that. And I'm like, all right, cool. But there's very particular wording that has to be associated with making politics, in making deals, right? And I feel like you can either just take everything at face value and be like, all right, cool. Don't I guess don't attack me for 3 turns and you'll get this. Okay, cool. That's a really cool deal. But then you could kind of nitpick that a little bit and be like, all right, well, they didn't say that I couldn't kill them. They just said that I couldn't attack them. So if I have non-combat damage that kills them, that still feels bad. And that's kind of a trap that happens when making deals, that I try to find. I don't try and find the ways around, but it's very much a way that you have to word things specifically in Commander to be that you get exactly what you want out of it.
Right. Believe it or not, making deals in Commander is actually a very good introduction to what we call contract law, because, it teaches you how to find loopholes or, word things very carefully so that loopholes don't really happen. That aside, though, making deals, like I said, it is something that I suck at personally, unfortunately. Because I'll be the first person to be like, well, actually, I'll say that for the next little bullet we have. But making deals, if you're going to make one, commit to it. Don't 1 turn later on your 3-turn deal say, oh, you know what? Actually, I could just kill you. That's kind of cruddy. Now, that being said, I would also even throw a clause in here. Don't make deals that oppress the whole table permanently. That doesn't feel great. If the 2 leading players make a deal with each other to just keep the other 2 players out of the game, I would say probably stay away from doing that. That's like the 2 monarchs at the table keeping the peasants on the ground, and that's not fun, honestly. I've been in that position before. One of the peasants, I should say, and it's really I just never wanted to play with those people again. And one of the best parts about playing Magic with random people is that you get to meet new people, you make new friends, assuming that, you don't do anything that causes them to not like you. Say that you're not going to kill them and then kill them. Or maybe in Rule 0, you say that you have a fun, casual aggro deck and it turns out to be a control combo deck, But at any rate, that's really all I have to say about deals. There's not much else that could be said about that. Just when you make one, commit to it, and don't make deals that cause the game to be very lopsided.
Yeah, that's realistically all it is. And making deals just comes down to practice and experience. And I guess making deals is very much a casual EDH experience, because I know in CEDH they don't do that whatsoever. There is no deals, there's no politics or anything. It's I'm going to do what's best for my game plan, yada, yada, yada. So 99.9% of us who play EDH have to make deals. And we have to be transparent with them as well, and make sure that, our intentions are met. And, if they do what they said they were going to do, then we have to follow through and do what we said we were going to do, because that's how it kind of works, and then you go from there. But yeah, that's about all I have to say about deals. We can move on now, Paul, to the next part that we had, that was just saying, basically, yeah, just being clear with your intentions and your board states, because I know, let's be honest, I have played some games recently where I have gotten a massive board state, and I have an oversized playmat. So if you've been able to catch any of our recorded content that we have of us playing Magic, or on a stream or anything, I have a Commander at Arms branded playmat. It has a QR code on it and everything. It's really cool. I'll get some photos of it up on Instagram this weekend when I pull it out to play some in-person Magic with some friends. But that is it's 48 inches by 24 or 25 inches. So it's a lot bigger than a regular playmat. And I had cards overlapping each other. So yeah, I was having to be very clear with what my board state was going to be doing and what my board state was. Not just oh, well, I intend to swing with you, swing with that. Be very clear with the power and toughnesses on your board. If anyone asks, just be upfront and honest with the information, especially when playing over webcam. I have noticed that there have been some games. Actually, this is a really good example, because I was at fault here. Actually, I caused someone to have a really feels bad moment that he told me about, and I did feel pretty cruddy about it. I was playing in a server here on Discord, and I was just playing Taser Karlov, and I had Taser out with Bastion Protector. Bastion Protector is a 3-drop 2/4, I believe, or a 3 something. But more importantly, it gives your commander +2/+2 and indestructible. So I was like, yep, cool, no worries. It got destroyed, so I was like, okay, no worries, cool, okay. I brought it back, and the player that this happened to actually verbatim quoted what I was going to do. So I assumed he knew what Bastion Protector did, because I had said it 3 or 4 times before the start of the game, because, again, we were all randomly new and we were having fun, and, I said, I'm going to tap 3 and cast Bastion Protector. It's a human, it gives me my commander indestructible and +2/+2, so it makes Taser a 4/6. With indestructible. That was quite relevant. And then it got to his turn. He had a Champion of Lambholt equipped with boots. That was a 4/4. And I took one of my headphones off to answer a question that I had happening in real life. And he apparently asked everybody what their power and toughness was, if anyone had anything that was over a 3. And I didn't say anything because I didn't hear the question. I came back and he swung at me and I blocked with Taser, and I was like, yeah, she's a 4/6. And he was like, oh, well, when I asked, why didn't you answer? And I was like, oh, because I didn't hear you. That's my bad. I'm really sorry. That happened. But because you verbatimly quoted what, Bastion Protector did, I assumed you knew what it did, and that was on me. I shouldn't have assumed that he knew what Bastion Protector did. But I was all up to taking it, doing a little takesy backsy and be like, all right, cool, don't swing at me, that's fine, go back to before your combat phase. That doesn't phase me whatsoever. So yeah, just again, that was a moment that I had, that was realization that went, oh, okay, cool. Maybe next time I should have said, hey, how big is it? Oh, I've got this on the field. Do you still want to do that attack? Because I'm cool saying, no, let's take it back.
Yeah, this is actually something that, this is the polar opposite of making deals with me. I'm too good at this. I will literally tell people, yeah, hey, man, if you can kill me, you should. I am going to win next turn. I have my combo on board represented.
Yeah, you do that a lot, actually. You're just hey, I'm literally about to win. If you don't kill me, I'm gonna walk away with the dub in this game. And they're like, oh, okay, let's all kill Paul.
But to me, I don't like to win off of hiding information. Obviously not in my hand, but I'm not the person to put Dryad Arbor with my lands. That doesn't feel right to me.
No, and that was in a Magic Pro Tour, wasn't it? That happened.
That was the whole reason that rule got changed. Was because of that.
He put Dryad Arbor in with his lands, and he was like, "Oh, I'll block with the 1/1 that was in my lands. Ha ha ha. I guess I win now." Don't be that guy. Don't do it. And in my case, I didn't mean to do it. He left quite angrily and came back and said, "Hey, this is a thing," and I profusely apologized because, again, I didn't want to feel like I was hiding information or misrepresenting what my board state was. So if you're out there, guy, listening, again, I'm really sorry. I hope we can jam some games again in the future.
Not only that, but like something that's really easy to do that when somebody casts a removal spell, I always make my targets obvious. Like if they have something that says destroy target artifact, I will always point out every single one of my artifacts every time. And I have played in pods with people, luckily nobody online yet, but like in person, long before COVID, a couple years before, where people will just like, they'll all of a sudden like clam up, right? They won't say anything. And I don't think that's cool. I don't think that's fair. That like I'm here being very honest about what I have for you to target, and I'll even tell you like, hey, my thing is probably the best thing to target. It's pretty scary, even if I have like nothing on the field. I don't know. I think that's also something that's very important to do, especially as we move into like a digital environment where it's perhaps not as obvious what actually is targetable or not. Yeah,
I have a very specific spot where I put all of my different non-land permanents and my land permanents. So it's always like creatures at the top and then artifacts and enchantments in the middle, separated. So artifacts on one side, enchantments on the other side, and then lands underneath that. But yeah, I will be the first person to say like, if you have removal that hits this is a threat. Like you need to get rid of this right now. Like I will never not say, oh, well, no, I have nothing on my board. I don't look over here. Ha ha ha. Unless like, obviously I'm having a joke with a friend.
I've definitely heard James try to cover up his Bola Citadel before. Like, oh, it's just Bola Citadel. Like, whatever. Who cares?
Look. That was different because it was between you, me, I think Ross, and another one of our really good friends. And I was like, it's just Bola Citadel. Don't worry about it. She'll be right.
Who cares?
It was cheeky banter that got taken a little bit out of context between. They're like, oh, and then I proceeded to win with it because I mean it's Bolas Citadel. It should just say Storm on it essentially. Like if you can set your deck up, it just says Storm. Yeah, okay. Look, you called me out, Paul, but I mean, aside that, when I'm playing with randoms, when I'm playing in public with strangers at an LGS, I will never not say if you can't get rid of this, you should get rid of this because this is a threat. This is something that you need to get rid of. Otherwise, I am going to use it for value, combo, or that's it. It's either a value piece or it's a combo piece. I'm going to win the game off it, or I'm going to get so far ahead of everyone else that you will not be able to come back. So if you have a removal spell, definitely get rid of it.
Right, and I was only bringing that up actually to point out a very clear difference between playing with friends and playing with strangers or, people that you don't know that well. You're going to want to play, like an honest human being first to get to that friend point, and then maybe you can do some of the shenanigans. But what we're talking about here is when you're playing with people that you don't really know that well, like when me and James play with other content creators that we don't know that well. These are pretty much the rules that we adhere to. So if anybody out there is playing with us in the future, here are the guidelines that we follow. And, whether or not you want to adopt this into your own politics regimen, that's up to you. But at least you know what me and James try to do.
Yeah, don't take this as like, oh, well, this is how we do it, so this is how we want everyone to do it. This is just our way of finding the best experience for Commander that we've found. And we're giving the information off to everyone who's listening. And if you want to adopt some of these practices, go for it. Let us know on Twitter at CMDR@arms because we want to hear about it. If you're not going to adopt these and you think we're totally wrong, also tell us at CMDR@arms. Tell us what we're doing wrong and let us know what you did adopt because, again, being able to communicate and talk with the community is the best part about being a content creator, especially about this game that we all love. But with all that said, Paul, we have one little topic to talk about. Wow, that was one hell of a sentence. Before we move into our ad break here, and this was something that was actually brought to us by our Discord. My good friend Sanusuke, on our Discord server, who does play a lot of CDH and runs some tournaments and everything. He's been playing some casual with me recently. And one thing that he couldn't quite understand in casual Magic was spite plays. So I want to talk about spite plays just a little bit here, and it kind of goes hand in hand with king making as well. Basically, if you're hitting someone just for the sake of hitting someone, or if they've done something to you in a past game, or if I can see where a spite play would be okay if they reneged on a deal, or if they did something that you didn't know was going to happen in a deal because they found a loophole. Definitely do something to, kind of show them that, hey, that wasn't cool. But it's I have a removal spell and you have the only target and you haven't done anything all game, but I'm going to get rid of it. See you later. You've drawn no cards. You have a Soul Ring on the field and you haven't played anything since the Soul Ring since turn 1. It's turn 5. Get rid of the Soul Ring. It's like, that just feels terrible.
Now, luckily, I don't really make spite plays that often, mainly because I can't remember what happened like 15, 20 minutes ago. So spite plays don't really happen for me, but I have seen people be like, oh, I'm literally attacking you all next game because you killed me first this game. And it's just like, not only are you ruining your own experience and theirs, you're ruining it for the pod because it throws off the balance of the game. Like you've got somebody that is literally just focusing a single person when it's clearly like not good to do so, whether or not it's even the right thing to do. And that can lead to an awful experience for everybody in that pod. Like I said, even yourself, like you're not going to feel good after that game because you will have accomplished absolutely nothing. Your deck will not do the thing that you wanted it to do because you're too busy spiting this other whoever this player is, and just don't do it. There's not really much else I have to say about spite plays. Just like don't be spiteful.
Yeah, that's all. I just wanted to throw it in there because it was a submission that came from Discord, which I think was a really good submission in casual play. I mean, if you throw all of your resources at one person, you have no more resources for the other two players, especially if you're going for a win. Again, there's a mentality there between like playing to win and playing for fun. You shouldn't be like, well, I'm playing this game to win. If I don't win, I'm going to be mad. It's more of like, well, you got to think of like a resource to, a resource to reward ratio. How many resources are you willing to spend on one player to then reap the rewards of, possibly getting closer to winning the game? And if you're throwing them all at one player, then you've got two other players with 100 card decks who have maybe the same amount of more removals than you do. So same amount of removals as you, who are going to point them at you. So when you're sitting there hitting one person playing on one-on-one, you've got two other people on the side hitting you as well, which is just hindering you. And because you've got, such a focus on one player, you may not be able to see that they have something that wipes out the board. Like they might do a Mycosynth Lattice, 2 turns later, they might, Vandal Blast, Overloaded, and destroy everything and say, let's start again. So, I mean, kind of be careful when you do these spite plays. Sometimes they can be, I'm never going to say it's necessary. Sometimes I can kind of see where people would want to do them, but at the end of the day, just take a step back, think about it logically, and just be like, all right, cool. What is the best target on the field to remove right now? And that all comes down to proper threat assessment, and maybe even opening up that threat assessment to the board is another good thing to do, because I always say, hey, I have a removal spell for X, Y, or Z. What should we get rid of? And everyone's like, oh, this, or this. I'm like, all right, cool. If I do this, what do I get out of it? I'm going to spend my resource and my turn doing something that you guys are going to get rewards for. What's my reward for doing that thing? Oh, well, I'll do this or I'll do that. Okay, cool. No worries. I'll get something out of it, which isn't card advantage or anything, but it's political advantage. And that is a very important aspect of casual Commander.
And one last thing I want to say on Spike Plays, something that's helped me grow as a player and learn, and this might be useful information to any newer players out there, which there's been a surprising amount of that I've seen on Twitter cropping up lately, which is awesome. Love to see it. When somebody makes a play that you don't quite understand, like if they destroy something of yours when you think something else was a better target, instead of getting angry about it or upset about it, ask them why. Because sometimes their answer will actually make a lot of sense. Sometimes their answer might just be, I have a reason I can't tell you right now. That happens, and that's perfectly understandable. But sometimes they will actually explain to you why they made the decision that they did. And like I said, a lot of times it will actually make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I just, it's kind of like to piggyback off that, don't backseat drive someone else's turn is another really big thing that I didn't even think to mention until now, because I mean this episode has taken one hell of a turn away from politics and more of to kind of how we play the game and how we evaluate the game. But if someone targets something on the field that you don't understand, don't be like, oh well, that's a terrible target, I would have done that instead, or you should do this, or if you hit this then I can do that. And that just, just let the game kind of naturally fall the way it's going to fall. Okay, like as Paul said, they may have a plan, and what they targeted may not be your target, but it's their target because it's stopping their plan from developing, and it may not be affecting you at all. So, but with all that said and done, we've had a very long main phase 1 here. We're going to pass through to our combat phase. I am going to. I normally swing at you on these combat steps, Paul, but I feel like you should swing at me sometime.
You know what? I'll pass through to combat, but I'm just doing it to empty your mana pool.
Oh, are you playing Yorlok?
No.
Okay. Mana burn's not a thing anymore. Damn. All right, so we're in a combat phase. We're going to go hear a message from our sponsors right now. Welcome back from that ad break. We're going to pass through to our main phase 2 here and have a quite explosive main phase 2. Maybe not as long as the main phase 1. We did run a little bit over time there, but we're going to continue our talks about politics and state of gameplay, I guess is what this divulged into. These ones we do have a couple of questions that we kind of wanted to ask ourselves and then have them being answered on the podcast. So Paul, these were your questions, so I'm going to ask you because I think you have the best answer possible for this one.
Makes sense.
Do your politics vary depending on the people you play with? Does playing with friends change the way you make deals? Or do your friends or regular playgroups make multi-game deals?
So obviously this one has a few parts. I was actually telling James, I'm going to address the last part of this first. I was telling James when we actually made this list of questions here. I've never really heard or seen a multi-game deal. I don't know if that's a thing that happens often. I personally literally have never experienced it, either like by reading about it or hearing about it or seeing it in person. So I can't really testify much to that. But my politics personally do not change depending on the people that I play with. I play with strangers the same way that I would play with friends, albeit I probably curse a little less, and I probably make different lines of play that I would not normally take just to make the game go a little longer. But the politics themselves, I'm always as clear and concise as possible about my board state. I always present targets. I'll always be honest if I'm like on the verge of winning. I'll be honest if somebody asks me what I think the threat is or who I think the threat is. So all of that stuff stays the same. But playing with friends does definitely change the way that I make deals. In that I actually make deals less with friends, because with friends there's a more understood notion of what everybody needs to do. It does come up from time to time, but the enjoyment of the game for me when I'm playing with friends comes from the fact that I am with friends. You know, we sit down, we're chatting while we're talking, we're chatting while we're playing. That sounds better. You know, we got like some sodas, and we're just slinging spells. There's really no need for deals to, you know, make the game shorter, longer, better, worse, whatever the case may be. So the only way it changes my deals is that I make less of them actually when I play with friends. And I know that might sound a little weird, but hopefully my explanation makes that make at least a little bit of sense.
It definitely does. I think we kind of have the same output on this, because I don't change my politics when I'm with friends or when I'm not. But yeah, like, you'll always know what kind of is a threat on your opponent's field if it's a friend that you've played with multiple times. I know that when I play with my friend Jared on the Discord server, when he plays his Mardu Humans Jarina Kudro deck, that I need to get rid of like Shared Animosity. I need to get rid of Embercleave. There is just so many cards in that deck that need to get rid of as soon as possible because they become a massive threat. He also has a mono black Mariner Rat deck that if he gets out like is a Bolas's Citadel and Necropotence, one of those need to go. If he gets out Thrumming Stone, it's GG, unless he can, like not be able to rip a Relentless Rat off the top. But yeah, I mean, kind of know what the targets are and what the biggest threats are. Outside of that, it's always just trying to pick the best targets as possible and talking about it. Like we said in main phase 1, there's not much really else to deep dive in this section. The other one I wanted to talk about mainly was the multi-game deal, because I have seen that before, where it's like, this kind of comes down to spite plays where you hit someone because of a previous game. Well, sometimes play groups will have deals that kind of span 3 games where it's like, I'll do something for you in this game if you do something for me in the next game. Like I'll carry a favor over, but it can't be a game-winning favor, where it's like, you spend your removal spell to get rid of something that I deem as a threat because it's stopping me from doing something or stopping me from progressing my board state. All right, cool. Well, if that happens, then I'm going to get something else out of it as well. But that's more like a campaign game where it's like, well, it's more of a match at that point where you play like 3 games of Commander or 3 matches of Commander and the winners of, you do like a best out of whatever kind of thing. That's all I can really think about how it is. Cause I haven't done one. I haven't been a part of one before. I've just heard stories on Twitter and on Reddit about it as well. It was in the Magic subreddit that I'm always perusing every day or every other day. So yeah, I mean, that's a whole other kettle of fish to dive into, is multi-game deals and how to navigate those ones. But they're kind of the same as regular deals, as just they have bigger implications because of the fact that you're spanning, weeks and months in between those deals being resolved. Maybe something to stay away from when you're playing with strangers, or as I like to call them, people you aren't friends with yet.
That's actually a very nice way of putting it, James. Well done.
Thank you. Straight off the top of the dome, because it's getting quite late here as this recording session keeps going, and you can kind of see my divulge in intelligence kind of coming down a little bit. But anyway, I digress. The next talking point we had on politics here is, do politics need to be a part of every game? Does everybody else having different politicking strategies than yours sour your experience of that game?
So the first part of this I actually just touched on a little bit when I was talking about playing with friends. I think politics are an important part of every single game that you play with people you don't know that well. I just think it makes for a better experience for everybody. Since, like I said, you don't know each other that well, I think that the policing of the game overall is a good thing to have, because then that way you can cater the experience to everybody's needs as the game progresses. It's kind of a self-correcting thing, I suppose. I don't think that they need to be part of every game where you're playing with friends. And I already touched on the reasons for that. But just in case, maybe, I don't know, maybe somebody skipped it or didn't hear me. I just think that when you're playing with friends, everybody has played with each other so many times that you just understand, what the problems are. You understand how people's decks work, so you just know what needs to die, what doesn't need to die, who's the threat at all times, etc., etc. So I think when you're playing with people that you don't know that well, very important, should be a part of every game. When you're playing with friends, absolutely not. You don't need politics every single time. Not saying that you shouldn't have them. I just don't think that they are a necessity at that point. You know, actually, James, before I touch on the second part, I want to see if you have any input on that.
I would say that sometimes politicking with friends needs to happen because I have had more feels bad moments with friends and kind of they've been left a little not sour but maybe scoured because it looks like I've just hounded on them or be like, oh, I'm going to hit you because, like you've got all this stuff and you're popping off and everything. And they're like, oh, well, I don't feel like I'm a threat. I'm doing this, yada, yada. That's where politics needs to come back into it and be like, okay, let's take a step back. Let's evaluate every single board state at the current, God, I totally just blanked on what Magic calls them. State-based actions. Right as state-based actions happen. All right, cool. Let's just figure out and talk about it as a pod. What's a threat? Because sometimes with friends that kind of gets missed, and I have seen that happen where sometimes we be a little spiky towards each other because we're all trying to win, and that's just another kettle of fish that needs to be addressed. And remember that we're all here for fun, and we're all here to have a good time and play with friends. So yeah, maybe politicking with friends depending on the situation and the mood that everyone's in. If you can see someone starting to get frustrated and angry about a decision, just explain why off the bat. Be like, hey, I'm doing this because of X, Y, Z. Other than that, you want to address the second part of that question, Paul?
Yeah. So when the thing is, I don't really expect everybody to have the same politics as me because mine are very specific and they're very upfront. I don't expect everybody to, like, when somebody casts a removal spell, say like, oh, well, like the best thing on my board right now is this. Like, it's a good target. I don't expect everybody to be that clear. So for me, people having the same politics as me, it's nice, but since I don't expect it, it's really difficult for my experience to be dampened or worsened by people not having the same policies as me. Now, that being said, I have experienced, when I say experience, I mean I've been a part of pods at my old LGS before I moved to where I currently am located. And in those pods, people, you'd have people like me that were very upfront, and then you'd have people that were very mysterious, is a nice way to put it. The nicest way I can think of, at least. And in the games like that, I could clearly tell that like people were not comfortable with people like that at the pod because they're literally hiding information on purpose. And when people make plays based on that lack of information, they will not hesitate to capitalize on that. Like, I was playing a game on Sunday. This is Wednesday, the time recording, so a few days ago. And my friend swung at me with his 2/2 Animar. I had a Scroll of Fate on the table, which is an artifact that you can tap it to manifest a card in your hand. When he declared his attack, well, I had mentioned specifically that I had Scroll of Fate. When he declared his attack on me, I tapped Scroll of Fate and I said, okay, I'm going to activate Scroll of Fate to manifest a card. Manifest a Carlos so I can block Animar. He was like, oh, I didn't, I completely forgot that did that. I was like, whatever, man, just take it back. I don't care. But like in pods like that, where I've played with other people, they would not let them take it back. And, whether or not I announced that play, like clearly that person would not make that play if they were in a mind state where they knew like, oh, okay, it's going to be a 2/2 colorless creature that they can block. Oh, sorry, that was a mouthful. This is something I actually feel pretty strongly about. And, I don't like people taking advantage of things like that.
I'll ask you this last little question here, Paul. Is there ever a time, do you think, when politicking becomes more important than actually having fun while playing Magic the Gathering?
So when I wrote this question, and I'm going to try to wrap this up as quick as I can. When I wrote this question, I was in the mindset like, is there a time where I would feel like it's more important to me to make a deal with somebody than to just let them do what they want at the table, right? Whatever they think is fun. And for me personally, absolutely not. I think having fun is the primary goal. I think politics can be a part of having fun, absolutely. But I don't think there is a time when I would value like making a deal with somebody to not attack me for one turn so that I can do my thing and they can do their thing more than just the pod in general, everybody having fun. And that's really all I'm going to say about that one because there's not much to elaborate on. I just thought it was an interesting question because I have seen people, like I said, I've been part of parts of pods where this is a thing. People will, instead of just having fun with the game, they'll be like visibly upset, but I made a deal, so cool. And I don't know, that just doesn't make much sense to me.
Yeah, and I mean the other thing that it just clicked then, that kind of happens more in casual play than CEDH is the visibility of being upset while the game is happening. And then as soon as the game's over, it's like, oh, well, I'm sorry to that. I was like, oh, nah, man, don't worry about it. Like, I know what happens. It's just like that mentality of being like, well, why don't you just do that in the game instead of being visibly upset during the game and making it kind of worse for everyone else. But with all that said and done, I think we're going to try and wrap this episode up now. So we're going to move through to our end step. If you have any politicking stories or any ways that you handle your politics, you can get at us on Twitter and Instagram at CMDR@arms, because we love hearing from you guys, kind of finding out like what makes you guys tick. If you liked this, and obviously you did because you made it to the end of the episode, don't forget to like the video and maybe share this with some friends. Go and check out our YouTube channel, which if you are watching this on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and comment. If you haven't checked out the YouTube channel yet, it's Commander at Arms on YouTube. So was it youtube.com/commanderatarms. I'm really bad at this right now. It's been a while. It's been a real hot minute. Okay. Bear with me. If you want to get the lowest prices on Magic cards delivered to your house while supporting local card shops, you can do that through TCG Player, and you can use our affiliate link to help us get a little bit of a kickback from that. Is tcgplayer.com/commanderatarms. We have our merch shirt currently on sale. If you click on the link in the show notes below or the description of the video, it'll take you to the Bad Fred Design Co. Etsy page where they host our shirt. It has the Commander at Arms logo across the chest. It's on a super soft Bella canvas, pre-shrunk, so it's never going to shrink in the wash or in the dryer. I'm actually in the process of buying a new one myself, because my one's a little big now. Hashtag subtle flex, I guess. Brag? I don't know. Anyway.
I think humble brag.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a humble brag. But anyway, if you want to support the show directly, you can do that at patreon.com/commanderatarms. There's 3 tiers in there. Everyone gets access to the Discord server, but patrons get a special Discord little secret. So if you want to find out what the secret is, subscribe to the Patreon. We also try to give them content a little earlier than everybody else, and some little hints and tips and tricks and some other stuff that Patreon participants get. And with all that said and done, Paul, do you have anything that you want to say to wrap this episode up?
Absolutely. And like James said, it's been a long time, so I might be a little rusty. But thank you, everybody, for tuning in and listening to this episode of the Commander at Arms podcast. Even if this is the first and last episode you ever have or ever will listen to, it really means a lot to me and James that you took the time to do so. Time is fleeting, time is precious, so even just a few minutes of your time devoted to putting us into your ears, it means the world to us. And I know I say this at the end of every episode, but truly, it means a lot to me and James that people take the time to sit down and listen to us. So thank you to everybody out there that has done so. Thank you to everybody who has shared our name on anything, whether it be YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever the case may be. It really means a lot to me and James that you're helping us to get out there and meet more people, meet more names and faces in the community. So just thank you for everything. And on that note, if there is anybody in your life that you might think would enjoy our content, please feel free to share our name with them. Maybe link them to our Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever they listen to podcasts, and let them know that there are a couple cool guys. Hey, James and Paul just talked about politics and Commander. You should really check it out. It's a cool episode. That would be awesome. Thank you so much.
And with that, I'm James.
And I'm Paul.
And you've been listening to the newest episode of the Commander at Arms podcast. And remember, arm yourself with knowledge. Peace.
See ya.